In 2024, something extraordinary happened. Nvidia, a company that most people once associated only with gaming graphics cards, became one of the most valuable companies in the world. For a brief period, it even surpassed Apple and Microsoft in market value. On Wall Street, investors couldn't stop talking about it. In Silicon Valley, every major AI company was racing to buy its chips.
From OpenAI and Microsoft to Amazon, Meta, Google, and Tesla, the world's biggest technology companies suddenly had one thing in common. They all depended on Nvidia. But how did a company that spent decades building hardware for gamers become the most important company in artificial intelligence? The answer is a story of vision, patience, and one of the greatest business strategies in modern history.
To understand Nvidia's rise, we need to go back more than 30 years. In the early 1990s, the technology industry looked completely different. Personal computers were becoming popular, but the internet was still in its infancy. Video games were primitive by today's standards, and artificial intelligence was mostly an academic concept rather than a commercial industry. At the time, companies like Intel dominated the semiconductor market, and almost nobody believed graphics processors would one day become more valuable than traditional computer chips. Yet one engineer saw a future that everyone else ignored. That engineer was Jensen Huang. Born in Taiwan and raised in the United States, Huang studied electrical engineering before earning a master's degree from Stanford University. Friends described him as intensely competitive, relentlessly curious, and willing to take risks that others avoided. While working in Silicon Valley, he became convinced that computing would eventually require specialized processors capable of handling millions of calculations simultaneously. It was an idea that sounded ambitious, perhaps even unrealistic, but Huang believed the future of computing would depend on it. In 1993, Jensen Huang teamed up with Chris Malachowski and Curtis Preem to launch Nvidia. The company had no billion-dollar investors, no famous brand, and no guarantee of survival. Like many Silicon Valley startups, Nvidia began with little more than a bold vision and a small team determined to challenge an industry dominated by much larger competitors. Their mission was simple but incredibly difficult: build the world's most advanced graphics processor. The first few years were brutal. Nvidia's early products struggled to gain traction. Competition was fierce, and money was disappearing fast. According to Huang, the company came dangerously close to running out of cash. One failed product could have ended the business before it ever had a chance to succeed. Most startups in that position disappear without anyone remembering their names. Nvidia almost became one of them. Instead of giving up, Huang made one of the most important decisions in the company's history. He refocused Nvidia's engineering efforts on building a processor unlike anything the market had seen before. In 1999, Nvidia introduced the GeForce 256, calling it the world's first graphics processing unit, or GPU. It wasn't just another graphics card. It represented an entirely new way of thinking about computer performance. Gamers immediately noticed the difference. Developers embraced the technology, and Nvidia finally had the breakthrough it desperately needed. At first, the GPU was seen as a gaming innovation, but Jensen Huang had a much bigger vision. He believed the same architecture used to render realistic graphics could also solve scientific problems, accelerate research, and one day, power artificial intelligence. It was a prediction that sounded almost unbelievable at the time. Years later, that prediction would transform Nvidia from a gaming company into the company powering the AI revolution.